Jack was a very loving boy, very talkative, even from a young child. All his school reports state that he's very chatty. He was also a very, very bright young man. Jack loved his sport. He played football, rugby, cricket. He was a second dan in taekwondo. He represented Wales all in Europe and in Great Britain. He became a Welsh champion, British champion and Scottish champion. I just remember going into Jack's bedroom and taking him his books that he needed for his English exam that his dad had just bought him. We then went into my bedroom and I remember sitting there getting ready to go out to take his younger brother Owain to rugby. Jack came and sat on my bed while I was straightening my hair, and we was watching the Whitney Houston tribute because she'd passed away that evening. I went down the stairs, I shouted up the stairs, "Jack, can Mam borrow a super dry jacket?" And he shouted down, "Yes," and I just said, "Love you," and he said, "Love you," and I said, "See you later." That was the last thing I said to Jack, was "Love you, see you later." I received a telephone call off Jack's girlfriend's mum, Kerry, saying that Jack was having some kind of fit. I remember asking her, "Is he breathing?" And she just said, "They are trying, June." So I was at Blackwood Rugby Club at the time with my younger son, Owain. So then a friend of mine took me straight to the house. And when I got there, I can still picture Jack now. He was sat in a chair with a tube in his mouth. There were 3 paramedics there, my husband, and they were picking the chair up and running into the ambulance. At the time, the crew, obviously, when I first arrived at the house, their priority was getting Jack to the hospital. So at the house, it was literally out of our way. We've got to get this child into this ambulance and away to the hospital. And that's what they did. When we got to the hospital, we were taken into a room and one of the nurses came in to us and explained that they were doing everything that they could for Jack. And I asked this nurse, "Please, I needed to be in there with my boy." And I remember Grant saying, if he's going to listen to anybody, he'd listen to his mother. I needed to be with him. I'm his mum. So when the nurse, she went and checked first and said, "You can come in," and she warned me what to expect. I thought, I don't care, I just need to get in there, and in the room I went. When I went in there, it was a bit manic, I suppose, for a better word. Everybody was running around trying to do everything as much as they could for Jack. I remember the nurse calling me up, and I went to Jack's head and I bent on, I was talking to him. There was nurses and doing CPR, and then they were stopping, and then there was doctors taking over. There was all machinery, and I can always remember, it's a funny thing, I remember the one nurse, obviously exhausted from doing the CPR, she stepped down and the paramedic went up and I can remember looking at him thinking, "Oh, you're still here?" And it was, I thought once they dropped people off, they went, they didn't. That team worked and worked and worked to try and save my boy. The doctor who was in charge of the resus team that day, she said that they were calling a member of staff down from the cardiology team to scan Jack's heart. They were all still continuing CPR, everything. I was even singing "You Never Walk Alone" to him and telling him to wake up and to prove the doctors wrong. The cardiologist came down, they stopped the CPR, they scanned his heart, and there was just nothing there. And that's when they told me there was no more they could do. I can remember standing there, looking around, and some people might think this is not professional, but to me it just showed that they were human beings because there wasn't a dry eye in that room. Jack had some blood on his face because he had some fluid that had come down his nose. And the one nurse said to me, oh, we're going to wash Jack over now. And I asked her, please, could I do it? And she just said, of course. So she gave me some water and some gauze, and she just talked to me, and we talked about Jack and what he was like while I washed him. They were absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Jack was very accident prone, so I used to spend a lot of time in A&E, and I was one of these mums. I'd been there 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe 4, and thinking, gosh, what are they doing, and everything else. But there's one thing I can show, I will never think of that again, because nobody knows what's going on behind those doors. That team worked for nearly 2 hours on my boy. And no, they couldn't have been seeing somebody with maybe a broken arm, because they were trying to save his life. So, you know, you just can't go to A&E and start moaning about the length of time that you were waiting to be seen. You need to think, why are you waiting this long? What is happening behind the scenes? Jack's funeral was 5 weeks after his death. It took place on March 16th. This was because it was the autopsy. They had to do so many tests on him to see if they could find why we lost Jack. But unfortunately we couldn't. So March 16th, we walked through our village. Jack's friends flanked either side of his hearse. And we walked, and there was 2,500 people there. The service was held in our church in Oakdale. When we all came out to the church, everybody sang, "You'll Never Walk Alone." And then it was over then to the crematorium in Croesy-Ceiliog, and then back to Blackwood Rugby Club, where it wasn't a wake, it was a party, because Jack liked partying. So his friends who had their own bands got on stage, they all sang, and we just had a great time. When we lost Jack's, I don't know, somebody told us to have a look of a website called Cardiac Risk in the Young. It was CRY for short. So we did this, and then about a month after we buried Jack, I started up a memorial fund called Cry in the Valleys, remembering Jack Thomas. And with this, I raised money to bring a screening programme into the South Wales area. Since I started that one programme up, I've raised, I think it's about £35,000. And then October last year, I thought, well, right, I've got the screening programme up, which could help prevent the cardiac arrests and everything like that. But what if one happens, we haven't got anything to try and help people then? So that's when I thought of the defibs. The South Wales Argus then got in touch with me, and they were very interested in what I was doing, and they asked if they could support me, which I agreed to. So they in turn put me in touch with Welsh Hearts, and we set them, that was our sort of birth of Jack's Appeal. So far we've provided, I think it's 12 schools in total, comprehensive schools with defibrillators in Jack's memory. On June the 6th of this year, we took a screening. Team came down from London with CRY, and we took it into Oakdale Comprehensive, and we screened 104 people. Out of that 104, there was 2 children that they wanted our follow-ups, but there was one child that they did pick up. She had a hole in her heart, and she had some type of arrhythmia. So, yeah, it was very successful. Jack's Law, yet again, South Wales Argus, put me in. They rang me up and said there was a gentleman called Phil Hill that was trying to get defibrillators into public buildings, and he'd seen read about Jack's appeal and was wondering if he could put the South Wales Argus could put Phil in touch with myself. So I agreed to this, and then one day Phil rang me, explained what he'd set up a petition to try and get the defibs into all public areas. That he wanted to take it to the Welsh Assembly, and he slipped in this little comment with, and I'd like to call it Jack's Law, which obviously I was just over the moon with. We lost Jack. If a defib had been there, would have saved him? I don't know. If he'd have been screened earlier, it probably would have got picked up. But there's nothing out there that says things have to be done. So if we can get an annual screening programme for 14 to 35-year-olds in South Wales, if we can get Jack's Law passed and get the defibs in these buildings, nobody needs to die. Somebody can get saved every day.